I've started to dislike the term Christian metal and Christian hardcore and it being its own genre. So what I saw happen way too many times in my career, in many of the bands I toured with, many of the bands I'm fans with, many of the bands you guys are probably fans with, and I'm not going to go naming names, bands we were on a label with, they kind of used that as a stepping stone to get relevance. And we're all about kingdom-minded this and Jesus that, and played the game. And then as soon as got to a certain point where they started getting secular recognition and kind of pivoted, got signed to a bigger secular label, then it was like, yeah, we actually never believed that stuff to begin with. And just completely kind of ditched the whole faith thing as if it was never even a real thing.
I am here today with my co-host, Kate Nardone from the Rock of Ages show on Ascend FM, and we are joined by Mark Randazzo of Malice. Malice is a modern metalcore project formed in 2025. The band was created by James Appleton and drummer Andy Amato, all former members of the Christian metalcore band Letter to the Exiles. Posts from Christian metal community pages describe Malice as a new supergroup made up of ex-members of War of Ages and Letters to the Exiles, who aim to bring an aggressive sound with emotional depth and to stand for truth. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for
having me. Did I get anything wrong?
No, perfect.
Mark, when I talk to musicians in person or over the phone or wherever I'm trying to gather information, I always ask for mission statements, bios, that kind of thing. But what I really the heart of what I want to know of any artist or band that I listen to is I want to know where and when God met you.
Sure. Yeah. So my personal testimony, it's funny because we had spoke when in the kind of the pre-screening prior to this, we had spoken about that we were going to probably talk about this. And when I was thinking about it today, it's funny because my personal testimony kind of lines up with what Of Malice is kind of all about as well. And I didn't really make that connection until just right before I jumped on this podcast today. So yeah, I grew up in a Christian household, good Christian parents, went to youth group, went to Christian high school, had just good, loving, God-fearing people in my life, leading me my whole life pretty much. And then as I got into my early 20s, at that age, you start to formulate your own opinions on things, ideas, and you just kind of become your own person. And for me, what I started thinking, and it's never that I stopped believing or anything, but I started questioning things. And the question was, is this my own faith? Is this my personal own faith? Or is this just something because I grew up Christian? And this is what my parents told me. This is what all their friends and all my friends believed or whatnot. And the question kind of crossed my mind, well, what if I was born into an atheist home? Or what if I was born into a Muslim home? Or some other belief system? Would I actually believe what I believe today? Or would I believe whatever they kind of raised me up to believe?
Right.
So I kind of went on this journey of questioning and almost trying to disprove the Bible and Christianity. And then what was an amazing resource and kind of brought me full circle back was that's when I discovered, I'm sure you guys have heard of Lee Strobel. I think that's how you say his last name, A Case for Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's his whole story, essentially. His wife got saved. He thought she joined some crazy cult. So he used his investigative journalism skills to try and disprove Christianity, only therefore leading him to Christ. So reading that book was really eye-opening for me because it was, my parents did the best they can and the people in my life did the best they can, but a lot of it was the church culture that kind of just all they do is look at the Bible and take it for face value, which is good and great. But I think it's also important to look at the historical and the cultural context of the Bible, because that gives it so much more substance and validity rather than just saying, oh, this is what I believe because the Bible says so.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that book was a really huge help in my kind of faith journey of questioning things. One thing that always kind of bothered me, especially and growing up, going to a Christian high school, you hear of all these speakers coming in and they have these crazy testimonies. I was hooked on crack for 30 years and I had this supernatural experience with God. And then boom, like after that, my life was completely different. I just like, I never had that. Thank God I wasn't hooked on crack for that many years, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think
But like I never had that like supernatural moment, which now I realize that's fine. And it was actually a blessing to be raised the way I was raised. And I hope I give my kids that same type of childhood, just growing up with that foundation of who Christ is and the Bible as their foundation. And so it kind of going back to the Lee Strobel Case for Christ thing, that kind of brought me back full circle. And I was like, all right, like this is it.
I have a friend who describes their different faith journeys being like a light switch, where some people it was all dark, and then all of a sudden they met Jesus, and that light switch flipped, and now they're in the light. Whereas other people that grew up like you, it's been more of like a dimmer switch, right? It's like you were never really in the dark because you had faithful parents that taught you to believe, and that dimmer switch might have gone up and down over the years, but never really went all the way down.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
I hope my own
analogy.
kids have that same experience where they don't ever look back and say that there was a time in their life where they didn't know the Lord and walk with Him.
same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's what like you going back to like the youth group time. I remember like thinking, man, like why don't I have like a cool testimony like that? Like almost like not that I ever questioned my salvation, but almost like, are you actually saved if you don't have a cool testimony like that? And
Oh,
like you said, it's actually a blessing to not have had been in the dark and to have always, and even through all that questioning, I never didn't believe. I was just questioning.
Hmm.
And that's just, I mean, that's who I am as a person in every facet of my life. Even in college, when I was doing my master's degree, all the professors, they called me the Inquisitor because I just question everything. And it's how you learn, it's how you understand, it's how you truly get to the truth. So and that's a big part of what the message of Malice is about. And I just thought it was funny that as I was thinking like reminiscing back on like my testimony, I'm like, oh, like I kind of have always been like that. That's just who I am as a person.
it's funny you in your message to me about your mission statement when I was getting you set up, you said that you seek to question authority, challenge narratives, and stand for truth.
And that's really that's still, I mean, in our bio now, because that's quintessentially what we're trying to do. To in every facet, in the church, in politics, in our culture, society, everything. People are just too quick to look to an authoritative figure and say, "Oh, well, so and so said it, so it must be true," and
And
take it at face value. And I'm on the other end of it where like I don't trust anybody. I consider everybody a liar and they have to prove themselves to me because I've just been let down too many times and have found people to either be speaking out of ignorance and very confidently out of ignorance or straight up lying for some other motive that they might have. And so in whether it's church culture, politics, whether it's just our culture in America or really throughout the world, it's you need to challenge the narratives because the narrative is very often the farthest thing from the truth. And that's the only way you get to the truth is by questioning. And God gave us the ability to think critically and to understand. There's also a culture of apathy in our society where it's easier to just believe what somebody tells you and take them at face value because you don't want to actually do your own research or look up that passage in the Bible in the context that it actually is written in the time in history when it was written and what was going on and all of that stuff. It's easy just to take things out of context and believe someone rather than get to the bottom of the truth.
yeah. I love that you did your research for your own faith to challenge it because I think God is so cool in that he's not afraid of that. He's go ahead, look, search, doubt, study to show yourself approved, right? But because at the end of the day, he knows that it can't be disproved because he is the truth. And that's exactly where you were rerouted. You didn't really go far, I would say,
No,
right?
no.
You didn't go far. And I love that God is like willing to let us do that and not be mad about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so many times in the Bible, you kind of see something like that, at least, where God will let someone challenge or struggle or question or anything. And there are also other times in the Bible where, like with Job, eventually he's put in his place. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
But overall, I do think it's healthy to do that. Especially challenging God is one thing. And I wouldn't recommend that. But challenging human beings, you should. Just because someone has a certain amount of credentials or has been in ministry for a certain amount of years, like none of that really matters. You obviously there's the discernment of the Holy Spirit when it comes to more of the faith related stuff. But I mean, I think that even ties into other aspects as well. Like you have to do your own research and you can't be lazy and apathetic about it.
So you have a mission, and you've expressed pretty articulately this whole Inquisitor thing, and it seems like that's carried on beyond college to just the public sphere. Was there a point in time in your life where you went from just going along with the flow to, my gosh, I trusted this person and they weren't who they said that they were, or they weren't actually telling me the truth? Was there like a catalyst that got you going down this path?
Not like a 180, like now this is who I am, but just little by little over the course of my life. As I kind of learned certain things and did my own research on certain things, that's when I realized that, oh wait, so what the public knowledge isn't always the most accurate. It's even like as simple as, how can I say this? So I guess like baby church culture, if that's probably not the best way to say it. But like as a kid, and then it kind of carries into, it's really not supposed to if you have mature leaders guiding you. But you remember reading the Bible stories, and every person in these Bible stories, Noah, David, all these guys, they're portrayed as these great men of God. But in reality, the reason they're considered great men of God is because of what God did and how he used some of the most screwed up people who ever walked the earth. Like, as you get to know and you really look into the literature of who these men were and the types of things they did, you realize how detestable and broken they were as human beings. But the way they're portrayed through children's books and even in adult like type books and whatnot, they're revered as these great men of God. When I almost feel like that's taking away from the fact that they're great men of God is because God took like the least of these and used them to accomplish these great things. It has nothing to do with them at all. But they are often portrayed as if they were worthy and that's why God did it. When scripturally, that is not the case at all. And then when anything, I work in healthcare. It's what I went to school for. As you kind of go down that rabbit hole and learn a lot of stuff about healthcare and how corrupt the healthcare system is, really, as I've been doing this for over a decade now, you start to realize that, oh, maybe not everything that they teach you certain things in school, whether you're a therapist or a nurse or nurse practitioner or a doctor or anything, there are companies that fund these curriculums to portray certain things in a certain way because they're profitable. So that's one, big area that was kind of eye-opening as I kind of learned all the corruption within that. Early on in my career, you kind of just took things at face value. But then as you kind of like see it for yourself and experience it, you kind of start to have your eyes open. So to bring it back to your original question, it wasn't like a one particular instance. It was just over the course of my life, little by little. I saw things that were not adding up and realized you can't really trust anything. You have to be diligent in getting to the bottom of whatever it is. If something is important to you, you should really take the time to do your own research on that topic and get to the bottom of it.
Do you think more people do that?
It's apathy. It's our culture. Unfortunately, we're just lazy. We're very, very lazy. I mean, you just look at it from a strict health and physiology standpoint, like especially in America, like look at the obesity rates in America. We live in just a apathetic culture that would rather pop a pill or take the easy way out to accomplish something rather than do the hard work. My background before I went into healthcare, I've been a personal trainer in fitness my entire life. So that's something health and wellness is something I'm super, super passionate about. And it's also why it's a really good industry because people, they want that quick fix and I'll just hire a trainer and then the pounds will magically come off when That's why a lot of people don't stick with it too, because they realize, oh, wait, no, I still have to do the work. The trainer's just going to make you do the work. And it's the same in the therapy world now that I'm a therapist. Oh, I broke my hip. I want to get stronger and be able to walk again. You're going to have to work your butt off to be able to do that. It's not going to come easy. So I think our culture as a whole is just lazy and apathetic. It's easier to pop a pill for something, and it's easier to take what someone says at face value and just take that as gospel truth rather than diving a little deeper or even questioning it. Because if you question it, now you're kind of obligated to go down that path and question it.
You're you're a really good speaker.
Really?
You really are. Like you back everything up that you say with facts. Like I feel like I know your whole thing is truth. I feel like when you speak, I can trust you because you back
Oh, that's
what
good.
you say.
See, I feel like I tend to ramble. So if I do start rambling, just bring me back.
Oh, but
Sometimes I'll
I
go,
love the plethora of information because I need things explained to me like I'm a 4-year-old. That's how I have to have things explained to me. And you're not doing that, but like you give enough detail, you back up what you're saying, you give facts, you give scripture. Are you involved? Like you sound like you're a very busy guy with the music and with work and all the things you're into. Do you also have like a home church that you do ministry in? And if so, like how do they feel about the heavy music?
so not that I do ministry in, but we do have a home church that we've really. So that was something for a while. So I have a son. We have one son. My wife is due in about 6 weeks, but I don't think she's going to make it. I think she's going to pop in like 3. She's my son came a couple weeks early, and we're fully anticipating for my daughter to come early because like she's not a big girl to begin with, my wife. So there's not much more room for that baby to grow. But
Well,
when my son was
congratulations
born,
early.
thank you. When my son was born, just Kate, you have kids, right? You
I
said?
have 4 grown kids and a grandson.
Okay. So, I mean, you both know then, like when you first become a parent, it's like, what? What? So we totally got out of a church routine. And then my son, he was and is a challenging child. Like hyperactive doesn't even begin to describe him. Never slept as a baby. Like he still doesn't sleep. So we kind of fell out of going to church just because like the couple times we tried, we we couldn't. We were also a bit overprotective. We didn't feel like dropping him off at the kids ministry at that time yet. When he was like 1. So we didn't really go to church for like over a year. So then and I can't really tell you why this particular event convicted, I guess I'll use that word, convicted me to have the need that, all right, we need to start going back to church again. But it was right around the time that like Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And I can't really say why that, I don't know if it was that particular event, but something about that and that time convicted me like, you know what, like that's important for my family. And I'm kind of going back to what we talked about at the beginning. Like I appreciate it so much that my parents, while we were not always part of a church, because that's a whole nother story, they always did a good job of keeping me in some sort of church community. Whether it was like, you guys ever hear of like Awana?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So like whether it was like Awana or just some other youth group or going to like a private Christian school and always like kept me grounded in that type of environment. And I'm like, I need to that's why I think I felt a little convicted. Like I need to do that for my son. And I also, we moved to Knoxville about 3 years now. So the blessing about when we moved here is my best friend and his entire family who are like his parents are like my parents, his brother is like my brother, his sister's like my sister. They all moved here like 5 or 6 years ago. So we moved here and we automatically have like family. And while that's been a blessing because we hang out with them all the time, we also like haven't felt the need to go out and make new friends because like we have our friends here.
Yeah.
But I started thinking that is important. And so like we need to get plugged into a church where we're not just showing up on Sunday and that's it. And start meeting people. So we've kind of tried to be a little bit more intentional with that. And I can't say like we've been super successful with that. Like we've become friendly with people in the church
Right.
and they have invited us to small groups, which we tried, and it's just challenging with my son because other kids are normal, but my son's a psychopath. So it's just like chasing him around. Is he going up the stairs? Oh, is he going to fall off the deck over here? And part of that is probably us being a little bit of helicopter parents, first kid. But that's what we're trying to do is just plug more in and build meaningful relationships with people within our church. Because I mean, people we met, they're great. We love them. They're awesome people. What I think we would actually like have fun hanging out with
Yeah.
outside of church. It's just it's making that happen, and a lot of it is self inflicted. It is a lot of us kind of holding back because we've had so many opportunities to join multiple small groups and go consistently.
Mm,
We just the times we did go, it was challenging. So it kind of was like, all right, well, let's wait till he's a little older and maybe it'll be a little better. But
I get
also, I realize we got to just kind of bite the bullet and go.
I was asking because a lot of church culture is not comfortable with the thought of heavy music, especially in a Christian genre. So I wasn't sure if you were getting any pushback or if it was being embraced or anything like that.
No, I mean, I don't even think anyone knows really. So, I mean, yeah, no, we've not gotten that deep where we talk about our hobbies yet. But yeah.
So I wanted to ask, this is the interesting journey that you've been on. And I feel like I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. You did the private school thing, you grew up in the church. Now you're in a situation where it's really hard to go to church and it's really hard to be in community. So how have you tried to maintain a closeness with God during that time?
So while it's been challenging to go to church, like a brick and mortar church, I'm very blessed that like my guys group, my like best friends, 6 dudes in my group, we've been friends since high school, probably before that. They're all just like the most like down to earth, God fearing, awesome husbands and fathers. And we make it a point to try to. It used to be, or it still is for them, because some of them are able to get there. We used to get together 4 times a year, like once a quarter, we would say. It's gotten a little harder for me, especially that they're all still on. I grew up on Long Island, New York. So a lot of them are still on Long Island or in Pennsylvania, fairly close. Knoxville, it's a little bit more challenging to get out there now and meet up with everyone. So we actually were just with them all this last weekend, though. We had a great time. But every one of those trips, those guys' trips, has been so incredibly special. And it's a time where we all kind of get together and yeah, we're hanging out, we're catching up, but like we're challenging each other, we're praying for each other, we're encouraging each other in any kind of hardships we're going through, seeing how can we be better husbands? How can we be better fathers? What is going on in our spiritual lives? How can we pray for each other? So, and it's, yeah, we're only meeting a couple times a year, but I mean, we have our thread and I talk to these dudes every day of my life too. So to have that community, I feel like I'm very fortunate to have that.
So let's see what I have here. Why of Malice? What is the name of the band about? Did that come from a story or a scripture, or what's the deal on that one?
So there's two different answers to that are related. The first, the more eloquent one, I'll explain, is the whole theme of the album is the project was born out of events and experiences that myself and co-founder James, he's the bass player, also does background vocals. He was also in Letter to the Exiles with me.
Right.
Things that we walked through in our lives, events and experiences that, from certain perspectives, could be viewed as malicious towards us. And that walking through that and kind of coming out the other side and what we learned through those events and experiences really formed us into who we are today. And a lot of the views we have in all different areas, spiritually, culturally, politically, everything. And we thought it was fitting for a name, being that this whole project was kind of born out of malice that was done to us.
Okay.
Now, I will say we totally made that meaning fit the real original reason why we picked this name, which I'll get to now. But after we chose the name, we realized it actually is very fitting because of what inspired us to start this project. So our favorite band of all time and biggest musical influence since Letter to the Exiles, and even before that, is Misery Signals. We just absolutely love Misery Signals. And our favorite album by them, which is their first album, is called Of Malice and the Magnum Heart.
Okay.
And while we were thinking of a name for this project, the other side of it was, all right, we have to be strategic with it, because one massive mistake we made with Letter to the Exiles when we came up with that, it was way too freaking long and nobody could remember it properly. Throughout our whole touring career, I'd say like 85% of the time, 85% of tour flyers and magazine things that we did, they spelt our name wrong. It was either like letters with an S to the Exiles. It was letter of Exiles. It was always wrong because it was too long.
Yeah.
So we were like, all right, when we're coming up with this name, 2 words, maybe 3 if it's memorable, but let's try to do 2 words. And then we started thinking of, all right, well, we think it's cool when other bands kind of name their projects off an album that is very important to them.
Mhm.
So then we kind of started going through all different albums that were important to us. So we threw out Messengers. We love that album by August Burns Red, but that was already a band name. We started going through all this stuff. And then we came to Of Malice from Of Malice and the Magnum Heart by Misery Signals. Again, one of our favorite albums of all time. We're like, Of Malice is pretty cool. And then as we started talking about it more, we realized that name also perfectly explained what inspired this entire project. So we're like, all right, that's what we're going with. We have the meaning behind it, and it's also short and strategic and memorable.
Yeah.
You can't mess up Of Malice, you know?
It's a cool name.
So-
I like it. I like it. It's cool. And you were saying about your influences and you're talking about albums and bands that you like. So like, do you have any non-metal influences
For just as
musically?
personal or for this project?
For your project. I know you have like a sound, like what is your like, do you have any like secret, like, like non-metal?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Taylor
bands
Swift.
how'd you know?
What'd you say? I didn't hear it.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
I'm a Swiftie. What can I say? I'm just kidding. Totally not a Swiftie. She does have one song I kind of like, though. I'm not going to lie. But I don't even remember what it's called. But no, a band that I would say that we don't, when you compare our sound to their sound, we're very different. But I totally am influenced by a lot of their riffs that I kind of just metal up a little bit, would be As Cities Burn. They're definitely, especially that first album, The Sun I Loved You at Your Darkest. It's very like kind of chaotic, hardcore, melodic hardcore, but it's not like, I wouldn't consider it metalcore at all, So that's one huge influence. And then another band that, again, when you would listen to them and then listen to us, you wouldn't say we sound anything like, but is a massive influence for me and the other dudes is Beloved. They're an older band. Like, we're all older. We're all like late 30s, early 40s. And we grew up in the early 2000s, aka the greatest time of hardcore metal ever to exist, in our humble opinion. So all of those bands from we're all Solid State kids growing up. So all of those 2003, 2004, 2005 bands, they influenced us and still continue to influence us, because those are still, I listen to the new stuff that's out, but that's my go-to, my era.
Right on.
I want to talk a little bit about the production process that you go through, and maybe we can just do a deep dive on Spineless. I'd love to hear how that song came about. And I mean, did you start with a riff? Did you start with lyrics? Did you start with a rhythm?
Sure.
Where did it all begin?
So Spineless, and this is pretty typical for my writing process, how I've always written, even since back in my letters days. Going back to the question you asked before, real quick, another caveat to how confusing Letter to the Exile of the name is we would refer to ourselves as Letters, but it's Letter to the Exile. So that threw people for a loop too. It was just a bad name. Anyway, so my writing process, kind of how that works is I'll usually start with a riff and then build on from there. Like if I have one riff I really like, I'll jam on that. And then sometimes that's the first riff of the song. Sometimes I'll throw something before it. But the way my mind works, everybody writes differently, but the way my mind works is like, once I get one good riff, I can hear the rest of the song, how I want it to lay out. And then it's just a matter of figuring out on my guitar what exactly I want it to sound like. And then I also write the music around the vocals I hear in my head. Now, there's no lyrics yet, but I'll have like certain vocal patterns. I'll have certain melodies in my head. And I personally think music is the average listener really doesn't care about the guitar player, really doesn't care about the drummer or the bass player. People care about the singer and the vocals. That's the majority of people. Now, musicians are a different breed. Musicians typically, they're hyper focusing on different musical aspects of the band. But the average listener is that melody catchy? Does it stick in my head? Can I bob my head to it? So what and this has evolved throughout my just musical career. But I really, when writing now, try to tailor the music to the vocals. And if I have something super catchy in my head, but the riff is really cool and techy too, while I want to keep that techiness and I'll do my best, I also want to make sure the vocals are going to be memorable. So I'm kind of writing both side by side. I do wait until most of the music is finished before I go in and then start writing lyrics. Sometimes I have a topic and certain lyrics in my mind that I already know what the song's going to be about and kind of write them both hand in hand. But typically I write the music first and then add the lyrics and like the nitty gritty of the vocals after that.
When you're going through this process, are you writing for, I'm sure it's both, but are you writing with other listeners, like fans in mind? Or is this just you're making stuff that you personally enjoy? And if other people like it too, that's great.
It is both, but I would probably say it's like 90-10 what I like and what other listeners would like. Like at the end of the day, especially at this point in my life where it truly is like I'm not trying to do this like when I was in my 20s. Yeah, I wanted to be a rock star. Now this is a hobby. And so we're writing music that we love and we enjoy and trying to bring back an older sound, a sound that resonates with people of our age who grew up Solid State Kids, Face Down Kids, Trust Kill, Ferret, all those bands in the early 2000s era. It's funny enough, that sound is just on its own making a comeback in general. There's so many bands from back then are re-releasing music or writing new music, which I've absolutely loved because you haven't heard anything from these bands in 10, 15, 20 years sometimes, and they're redoing it all now. So where we didn't mean to, we didn't even know that that bandwagon was actually a bandwagon, but I guess it's good timing that kind of sound is coming back now that we're doing this project. But yeah, we're definitely focusing on what we want it to sound like. And we are also considering like, what would people like? Oh, I think people would like if we did a big like music stop vocal pick call type of part, like very For Today-esque. Maddie Montgomery's like the king of those big pause scream vocals in your face. He's also a monster vocalist, so he can get away with that. I got a long way to go to catch up to him.
So speaking of vocals, you're doing both clean and screams. Is that right? Do you like one more than the other?
So screaming is actually very new to me. As a full-time frontman type screamer, I've sung my entire life. As a worship leader all through high school. I've always sang in when I was in War of Ages, when I was in Letter of the Exiles, I did all the clean singing. The one album I did with War of Ages, Return to Life, I did all the clean singing on that album. So very comfortable singing. Screaming, I screamed in both of those bands, but it was always background, supporting Leroy, who is the singer of War of Ages, and Chris, who is the singer of Letter of the Exiles. Never as a frontman. I only started screaming, less than a year ago, full time. It's been a journey and it continues to be because when I first started, my technique was just trash. I was losing my voice a lot. I was like, how the heck am I actually going to be able to do this? I spent countless hours just researching, talking to different people, watching different YouTube videos. The cool thing nowadays compared to when I was a kid, because you try to learn to scream when you're a kid, there was no resources back then. The only thing we had was Melissa Cross's The Zen of Screaming, which was revolutionary. There was nothing like that back then. But it's come a long way since then. There are so many different vocal coaches that are able to explain it in a way that just makes more sense. And it could you talk to I've seen so many interviews with dudes from like Fit for a King or Jake from August Burns Red and all these vocalists that have been doing it for 20 years. And they all say the same thing. Like someone starting to scream now, it has it so much better off because they can learn in just a year or a couple years what took them a decade to learn because it was trial and error for them. It was, all right, maybe I changed this, maybe I changed that. There was no actual resources to coach. So the last year, I've worked really hard at working on my technique, going through a lot of the myths that are out there about screaming. Everybody's scream. First of all, I've learned there are different types of screams, which I never realized. There's different tissues in the throat and in the voice that you could use doing different types of screens depending. And also there's different volumes and projections. And like, so James, for example, my bass player, he does background vocals. He has more of like a comeback kid, architect's like yelly scream. And like when he screams, like the whole neighborhood knows. It is so loud, 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 loud. I have what I've now learned, it's kind of a hybrid between like fry and false chord, but it's much quieter. It's no louder than me talking to you right now. That's essentially the volume. And I've learned that that's okay. All these coaches, that's like the first thing they hone in on. They hone in on the myth that screaming needs to be super loud because it presents that way. When you listen to this music, it's so aggressive and in your face. And you see these music videos and the faces that people are making live. But in reality, that's what the mic is doing. The mic is bringing up the volume to where it needs to be. And they're focusing on, or the ones that want to have longevity in their voice are focusing on creating the tone at a tolerable level where they could have longevity and get through a song, get through a show, get through a tour. So it's definitely been a journey, a fun journey, but frustrating at times. Because I mean, Spineless, for example, I tracked that song with one mic I had, and I didn't like the way my vocals sounded with it. But like I lost my voice in doing that tracking. So then like I had to wait a couple weeks for all the swelling to go down until I could retrack it with the new mic. And then I lost it again. And so like this was all within the first, because we just started this. The first time I really ever screamed for this was we released it in September. So I tracked in August of 2025. That was my first experience ever screaming for an entire song. And so for the rest of 2025, it was losing my voice, getting it back. All right, let's try something a little different. Losing my voice, getting it back. And then at the beginning of this year, 2026, is when David Benatas, shout out to that dude. He's worked with like every major band, and his YouTube channel, even just the free stuff on his YouTube channel, is just a wealth of knowledge. He also does private lessons, which I am planning to do eventually. He's just, because he's one of the best at what he does, he's expensive, but he's worth every penny, in my opinion. I've gotten some quotes, but I learned a lot. So it's been a fun journey.
That's crazy. So I just started looking into it myself like a month ago. And I've been practicing. I'm doing exactly what you're saying. Like I was watching YouTube videos. There was some guy, he's like, I don't even know how to describe this. So I'm just going to like do it and tell you what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, I think I kind of get what you're saying. I can only practice in my car or else my family will be like, are you mad at somebody? And I can tell I'm like damaging my vocal cords. So I know I don't have the right technique yet, but I think that's an encouragement to me and anyone else that's listening.
And 100%. And a lot of it too is, even if you are doing it correctly, you're using tissues you've never used before. So like there's gonna be that you're gonna lose your voice a little bit because you almost have to at the end of the day, your vocal cords and all the tissues in there, a lot of it are muscles too. Not all of it is musculature, but you have to strengthen those muscles because they're gonna be weak and they're gonna get fatigued easily and they're gonna get swollen. Just like when you're working out. When you first start working out, you're so sore because your muscles are like, what's going on? And they get all swollen and you can't move them and they hurt like hell. And then as you do it more, they build up their resistance. And it's honestly, when I heard someone explain the voice like that, it's 100% the same thing. So just keep with it.
No, that's really smart. I appreciate you sharing that. Mark, do you think of Malice as a metalcore band, as a Christian band, as a Christian metalcore band? Like, how do you self-identify?
Sure. I've had this question a couple times. So I want to be careful how I answer it too, because I don't want people to take things out of context or see a clip here and then think something else. But I have especially in the Christian metal space, which I've been a part of my whole life. In my older years, and through some of the experiences I had while touring with Light of the Exiles and War of Ages, I've started to dislike the term Christian metal and Christian hardcore and it being its own genre. And the reason being is I've seen it abused too many times, really, where it was, and it still is, a niche. It's like a sub-genre of metal and hardcore, and which is awesome. The Christian metal space or hardcore space, metalcore space, whatever you want to call it, Christian heavy music space are so loyal, so supportive. Like they are awesome. So what I saw happen way too many times in my career, in many of the bands I toured with, many of the bands I'm fans with, many of the bands you guys are probably fans with, and I'm not going to go naming names, bands we were on a label with. They kind of used that as a stepping stone to get relevance, and we're all about kingdom-minded this and Jesus that, and played the game. And then as soon as got to a certain point where they started getting secular recognition and kind of pivoted, got signed to a bigger secular label, then it was like, yeah, we actually never believed that stuff to begin with, and just completely kind of ditched the whole faith thing as if it was never even a real thing. And I think part of that is because the Christian heavy music space almost enabled that. Like they allowed them to get to that point by supporting them. Whereas, and I don't, obviously I love that space. Well, I'm in that space. We're always going to be in that space just because that's who I am as a human. But I do think I've seen too many people just use that and abuse it and then eventually just leave. So that's become my dislike for the Christian heavy music space. Whereas going back to your original question, what do I consider of Malice? I mean, I consider of Malice, we're a metalcore band. We will write about, honestly, this album that is coming out is not specifically about anything faith related. Now, of course, it is written from a perspective of someone who is a believer because that's who we are. That's who I am as a human being. And that's how I write. But it's the content of my music isn't going to be like For Today or Sleeping Giant, and where they have a very specific mission with what they want that band to be. And then like in the terms of the term Christian metal, that makes sense. I understand why people consider them to be Christian metal because of how vocal they are and what their mission is as a band. At the same time with that, though, there are a lot of people where the second they hear that, they're like, I'm not going to give this band the time of day. Now, I mean, both of those bands, For Today and Sleeping Giant, and a lot of it, I think probably the majority of it is just due to the Holy Spirit working through them. But like they were able to break through that and they blew up even within the secular world just because, I mean, they're just awesome bands. But a lot of those bands started just as preachy as Sleeping Giant and For Today. And then the second they got secular recognition, they were, peace, see you later. So,
He's not
So
wrong.
does that make you want to distance yourself from that label just because of how it's been abused in the past?
oh, no. Oh, you mean Christian metal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. And just because I don't think it's necessary. I think interviews like this, just talking to me, like I'm very, when anyone follows us on Instagram, like I reach out to them. I say, hey, like, thanks for following us. I'm Mark. And just like I'm very like, I want to talk to people. I want to get to know fans, you know? And I think people just by getting to know us and talking to us and that is and even just going back to my touring days, you know, what we did off stage was always way more impactful than what we did on stage. And a lot of that, I'd say that's probably a majority of bands will have a bigger impact in how and they interact with their fans and what they say, the content of their conversation and whatnot, rather than just like what your lyrics are or stuff like that. So now, if someone wants to consider us Christian metal or Christian hardcore, Christian metalcore, I'm never going to say no because again, that's who I am as a person. Like that's what I believe. So like I gladly welcome that. I've kind of, I guess, been burnt by that label, by that name, just from the experiences and the bands that I knew personally and kind of watched where they went and realized how they use that label and abuse that label.
Yeah, and I get the distinction, it makes sense to me, and I think it probably makes sense to a lot of people, right? Because there are bands that are singing about the cross and the coming judgment, and sometimes it's more metaphorical, sometimes it's more explicitly biblical. But you're not doing that, which is totally fine.
Well, not
So
yet.
it almost seems like if you said, "Hey, we're a Christian metalcore band," and someone listened to Spineless, they would say, "Well, are you? I'm not seeing anything here about Jesus."
And that's the other thing too, because and I think this is more of a smaller section of the Christian metal scene where they expect every single song to be like a For Today song when there really is like a scale. I don't try to complicate it with labels because I think God gave us the ability to express ourselves through music and write about our frustrations, our lament. I mean, half of the Psalms are lament. It's really therapeutic in order to get that out. And it's also, at the same token, can be used for praise. And it depends on what you kind of want to get out or what you have in your heart that you really are going through or walking through that time in your life. Well, going back, like I said, this particular album, there's nothing specifically about, I shouldn't even say that because there are a couple songs that, again, are written from a very Christian perspective, but it's not going to be as blunt as like a For Today song. I just keep using them as a reference just because they are very direct in their lyrics. Now, next record, will it? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to write about yet. It all depends on. I was in one space when I wrote and what I wrote this record about. I don't know what the next record is going to be about. This one's not even finished being done, so I haven't even started to think about that yet. We don't want to put ourselves in a box where it says, all right, everything we have to do has to be a For Today song, but also like we would never consider ourselves to be a non-Christian band either. Like that's why I don't even think about the label secular or Christian. We're
Yeah.
a metalcore band, and that's who I am as a person. I love Jesus, you know?
Well, let me ask it from maybe a different perspective. I'd love to get your thoughts on this because I've talked to a number of metal bands that are Christians, and it seems like for a lot of artists, when they're making music, it's a creative outlet, or it's a hobby, or it's a way to make some extra money. That's probably not 99% of Christian
Not
metal bands.
metalcore, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But the idea of, hey, this music that I'm making, I'm actually doing it with God, and I pray about it, and I lean on Him. It's spirit led. It might not be explicitly Christian lyrics, but it's something where I'm not compartmentalizing my life into, okay, this is my music, and then when I'm done with the music, then I've got my walk with God over here. I've got my church life and my faith over here. So how is that for you? Is it integrated? I mean, are you praying about your music? Do you feel like God's inspiring you with certain things? Like how involved is He in your creative process?
Yeah, of course. I would I would say completely because I feel like the gift that he's given me to be able to create music that people enjoy, I mean, it comes from him. And then a lot of the content of this album coming out, which is the album is called, we haven't really announced this yet, but is called The Cost of Truth. And the whole premise of the album is how, as we spoke earlier, that constant searching, questioning authority, challenging narratives, there comes a cost, you know? When you search for the truth and not only search for truth, then when you plant your feet and say, hey, this is the truth, that comes with a cost. And so I can totally see why, if you look at the lyrics of Spineless, because it's a condemning song. It's very like you could easily say, well, I don't know if this is Christian, but it's condemning those who just follow the crowd and don't actually do their research and look into the content of what it is that they're saying they believe.
Like
Which
a complete lack of like integrity.
yeah,
That's what I
and
get from it. Like a complete lack of integrity. Yeah.
accountability and all of that because it's the wide path. It's not the narrow hard path. It's the easier way to go. I can't say that before I start writing, I sit there and I say, God, lead me in what you want me to write today. Usually when I'm writing, I'm in my bed, I'm in my underwear with my wife watching Netflix, and I'm just doodling on the guitar. You know what I mean? So it's very like I just jam here and there. But as I'm composing these songs, a lot of it, what I'm writing about is stuff that I am talking to God about, and either or in the case of this album, because this is really based on stuff that happened years ago. It's stuff that I was going to God with, and what do I do in this situation? How does this unfold? So yeah, totally. To answer your question, yes.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, one of the lyrics, you call someone a punk, right? And that's kind of a modern day brood of vipers.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, because that's kind of what the song is. the song was written about a specific individual, a very good friend of mine who disappointed me. And this individual, we described him as an amoeba. He just like whatever group of friends he hung out with, when he was with the Christian friends, it was all 100% in. And then you go to a different group of friends and whatever it is they believe. And then you go to a different group of friends, whatever it is they believe and whatever they stand for, whatever the current thing is, whatever the popular thing is. And it's like, dude, you became a spineless punk. You don't stand for another line. You stand for nothing and fall for everything. And just, that's just unfortunately a very common thing in our society. People, they don't stand for anything. They have no substance nowadays. And whatever they're told, okay, yes, all right, I believe. And why? Like, why don't you just take the time to use your God-given ability to think critically and look at situations and realize 2 plus 2 does not equal 5? It's like, you don't have to be a genius to do that.
Did you ever tell him you wrote the song for him? Hey,
No.
bro, this is your song.
No, I didn't.
If
I
he's
didn't.
watching this
No,
right now, would he know that it was about him?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But I love him. I'm always gonna love that dude. He's come around quite a bit too. But yeah.
So if you're friends with Mark and you're watching this, just take a moment of self-reflection.
It could be you.
Well,
He would never know.
I'm mindful
Unfortunately,
of,
I don't think he's self-reflectant enough to realize.
Aware, right?
we're going to start our lightning rounds. You are trying for a personal record in the gym. What song are you putting on?
Death to Traitors by Beloved.
You win a free trip anywhere in the world. Where are you going?
Can I bring my wife?
Yeah.
Going back to Greece. That's where we got engaged. Love it there.
Nice. You could do a collaboration with any band currently performing. Who do you choose?
Jake from August Burns Red. Because, I've loved that dude since he joined. I was a fan of August Burns Red before he joined. And then I thought when he jumped on board, he just elevated them exponentially. And he's like probably the most consistent metalcore vocalist out there. Like every album, he's just killing it.
Describe your band's sound in one word.
Pissed.
You can choose any superpower. Which one do you choose?
Oh, this is easy. Wolverine. I want to be Wolverine.
So regeneration or
Regeneration,
like you got to have the
claws,
whole thing.
The whole thing.
Love
Do you
it.
want to go through that adamantium infusion process or
I
you
don't
just
know.
flip a switch?
Maybe though. I love Wolverine since I'm a huge comic dude. So
You and
that's
my
my
husband
boy
would
right
be
there.
best friends. Wolverine, absolutely. All right. I love this question. What is the least metal thing about you?
Probably the fact that I'm an occupational therapist and director of rehab.
Okay.
Not very metal.
No. Love it.
You can only listen to one album for the rest of your life. What is it?
A hard one. I think I'm gonna go As Cities Burn, Son, I Loved You at Your Darkest.
Favorite book?
Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Movie. I'm gonna say the Star Wars trilogy, like the originals. The originals.
Of course. All right. Which actor would play you in a movie about you?
So, actor, I get this a lot and I don't know his name, but everybody tells me I look like the guy who plays Daredevil in the new Daredevil show. I don't know if you guys have watched that. I can't remember his name, but that dude.
That dude. That's a good answer.
That dude.
Yeah, I saw that show a while ago. I can't remember what he looks like. Tall, dark, and handsome. I think that's kind of the
He's probably
casting.
taller than me because I'm short, dark, and handsome.
How tall are you?
5'6" on a good day.
Okay.
Little guy.
That's my husband's height.
There you go.
I think you guys are friends. I do. I think like there's a...
Sounds like it.
Yes.
He likes comics, Star Wars. He's short.
Uh-huh. That's it.
Well, tell us what's next for you and of Malice. I know you're working on an album.
Yeah. So we just finished tracking the album last week and sent it off to be mixed. We are working with Danny Coleman. He's the producer and engineer we're working with. He's done a bunch of really cool bands. He did one of the most recent things. There's a band called Midwinter. They're not a Christian band, but really awesome heavy band. And he did their newest album. And the production on it was just out of control. So when I heard that album, I reached out to him. So he just got started mixing that, and we're hoping to have the album done within, next 2 months or so. We also just got finished shooting a music video for the first single we're going to be releasing. And we just landed a very awesome feature someone who's going to do a vocal feature on that song, someone who is a legend in the Christian metal space. I'll tell you guys after this podcast because I don't want to ruin it for everybody.
All right.
But so we're super stoked for that to come out, and I think people are going to really like that. We have a couple cool features on this album coming out. And then yeah, once the video's done and the album's done being mixed and mastered, we're going to talk about how we want to go about releasing it and kind of talk about rollout strategy and kind of decide which route we want to go. But plan is to have the album released before the end of this year.
That's awesome.
And I
Exciting.
think you and I spoke on the phone. You like touring is hard just because kids, newborn, bills to pay, full-time job. You'll do local shows.
Plan is like we're just focusing on this record, and the cool thing, maybe we could talk about this in a future podcast if you guys want to have me on again sometime. Social media is it's an awesome tool that didn't have the efficacy and the power back when I was touring that it does now, where for smaller, newer bands, it almost doesn't, in this economy right now, it doesn't make sense to tour. Like even if I was single, no wife, no kids, I don't know if I would go and tour just because the money you're going to be making as a brand new band, even if you're going out with fairly decent bands as an opener, it's hard to even break even as far as getting to the next show. And then social media has such an incredible, if used correctly, way to reach thousands of fans and get your music out there without ever having to play a show. Now, we hope to play shows. The plan is for 2027 to get some shows on the books and actually start doing some shows here and there, weekend runs. If we can get on some festivals, then that'd be cool too. But luckily, we still have a fair amount of contacts from back in our touring days. So hoping we can kind of use those to our advantage to get on some fun festivals and what. But full-time touring, I almost never say never, but we'll never full-time tour. It's just not in the cards for busy dads with careers, and that's almost all of us,
Yep.
So, and plus, honestly, at this point in my life, like, especially with little kids, I don't want to leave them. Like, I want to be there. I want to watch them grow up. Like, I love being a dad. I love being a husband to my wife. Like, I love being a family dude, I'm the family guy.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Any other questions, Kate?
I don't think so, man. That was cool though. It was really
Well, how
nice
can
getting to
people-
know you. This is great for me because, like I communicate with you guys online and, we get things set up and we kind of discuss like when you're playing and that kind of stuff. But like, I don't get to dive too personal with everybody. So this is like good for me. Like I'm being selfish. I really enjoyed this for me, but
I enjoyed it too.
I'm glad.
Me too.
But I think it's a good way for people to get to know the artists and the bands, and I'm super stoked we got to do it with you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
How can people be praying for you?
Mm.
I guess going back to the community thing, just praying for continued opportunities for just good community in a church setting with my family and whatnot, and opening those doors and making it a little easier with my little one so that we could actually get plugged into those small groups and make it manageable,
So
Well, and I think people who are watching and listening need to pray a specific prayer that your second child is a little more restrained than your first child.
We're hoping and praying. It's a girl, so we hope that she will be, but also we've heard middle children can be just as crazy, so if not crazier.
we'll
yeah.
we'll pray.
Yeah.
She will be calm in Jesus' name. And
That's it.
Amen.
It will all be wonderful. And your son's characteristics, everything going on with your son. I have 4 children. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. God's going to use it all for his glory. God's
I am
use all those characteristics that are challenging. He's going to take them and he's going to make him use them for his causes. And you're going to be grateful he's got some of the personality traits that he does. I promise.
No, and we do say that all the time because, like, yes, he's challenging, but they are, like, as long as I guess another prayer request would be that he continues to give us wisdom to guide him so that we can, like, funnel those characteristics into good, productive things. Like, he's very stubborn, even as a 2-year-old. But stubbornness, if formed correctly, turn into a good trait as far as having good drive, having good discipline, having good, just not giving up, willpower
Mhm.
and whatnot. So
Integrity, unmoving,
yeah,
faith, and yes,
yes,
all
Be
sorts of
stubborn against sin.
yes.
yeah,
Yep. That's it.
exactly. So
That's it. And I'm on the other side of it because mine are all grown. And so I can tell you the stubborn difficulties and all that other stuff. I see it, man. I see it manifesting for God's glory. And I thank God every day that my child is exactly the way that they always were and are going to be because now I see why. And I'm like,
yes,
I got it, Lord. It's all good. Thank you.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you'll be good.